What it is to love your family. And this is the message I have for you this morning. In the earlier days, the Chinese have these 24 stories of filial piety. It records the things that these children who honor their parents, there are 24 of them. However, in the world today, and I believe there will be more 24 fathers or parents who would be honoring their children instead of children honoring their parents. Now, as parents today, we really know how to love our children. On the first birthday of your children, certainly there would be a grandiose celebration. And when a girl turns 18, it's just like a wedding ceremony. It's something that is joyful. Of course, remember that I am not against this. Because this is one way that the parents express their love to their children. That is through the material things we are expressing to our children that we love them.
But
material things is only one way for us to express this. And material things is not the best way to express that. Because I would guarantee this to you, that when you grow old, the children will certainly have forgotten the material things that you have given them. So apart and aside from these material things that you are giving them, what are the other ways that you can express your love to your children and to the families as well? So on the Family Sunday today, I'm going to share with you 5 principles.
Truly loving your family. Principle number 1.
So the first principle, for parents to truly show the family members, the children, that they love them, that is, the parents themselves have to love each other.
Malachi chapter 2 verse 15. 雖然講雖然上帝有靈嘅有力，有通罪較罪人，但係上帝竟唔是獨獨追一個人，為什麼只追一個人？好這個人得到敬虔嘅後裔。
In Malachi chapter 2 verse 15 says, Has not the Lord made them one? In flesh and spirit they are his. And why one? Because he was seeking godly offspring.
上帝有通對亞當這個骨嘅裏面創造真罪夏娃和亞當。
And God is capable of taking one piece of Adam's rib and create many Eves.
Eve number 1, Eve number 2, Eve number 3.
It could be Hawa te, it Hawa te, di Hawa te sa.
So here they are.
So brothers,
上帝創造7個太太後你。
God created 7 wives for you.
Even number 1, give Eve number 7.
From the first to the 7th one.
特別無常太太。
There would be different wives on each day.
你愛冇？
Would you love that?
我相信你現在講袂歹啊，袂歹。
I believe you say that's not bad.
但係上帝比咱更加清楚。
But then God is more clearer than us in this respect.
上帝講 no, it's not good for you.
That says 這個是對你不好的。
上帝只創一個夏娃和亞當。
And so God created only one Eve for Adam.
因為喺上帝這個婚姻嘅 principle 裏面，
Because in this marriage principle that God has set,
一個男嘅，一個女嘅，
it should be a man and a woman.
一個丈夫，一個太
There's
太，
only one husband and one wife.
一生一世。
And that should be lasting for a lifetime.
這是上帝 principle in marriage。
And this is 上帝對這個婚姻的原則。
男嘅就及女嘅近超，
And so man has to marry a woman.
男嘅唔適合男嘅近
So
超，
man should not marry another man.
女嘅唔適合女嘅近超。
Nor should a woman marry another woman.
It's wrong.
這個是唔對
It's a
的。
sin，
這個是罪。
唔是上帝嘅心意。
This is not the intention of
這個
God.
丈夫，這個太太，
So there should be a husband and a wife.
唔是這個丈夫曬太太，
It's not a husband and 3 wives.
是一生一世。
That is also would last for a
喺
lifetime.
上帝心意唔是 divorce，冇
And
divorce，
so
冇 annulment，
in the sight of God, there should be no divorce nor
這
annulment.
是人犯罪嘅結果。
It is rather a result of the sinfulness of man.
上帝只創造一個女嘅和亞當，
God only created an Eve for Adam.
Because
因为
上帝愛人有敬虔的後裔。
because God wants men to have godly offspring.
弟兄姊妹，我在你真早聽你嘅講你，
And brothers and sisters, I know you love your children very much.
請問
But then let me ask
你
you,
愛你嘅囡仔就係真敬虔嘅後裔嘛？
do you want your children to be godly?
你愛你嘅囡仔真詭詐嘛
Do you want your children to be corrupt and
？Of
sure?
course，咱嘅囡仔真正 godliness。
Of course, we want our children to be godly.
所以咱需要好咱嘅囡仔有另外一個真正重要嘅屬靈嘅幫襯。
And so we can give them this very important spiritual help.
最父母和囡仔頭一個 spiritual blessing 就是你中間彼此相聽。
And so the first spiritual blessing that you can give your own children is for the couple or the parents to love each other.
這個真正出名嘅傳人叫做 John MacArthur。
A very popular speaker and pastor is John MacArthur.
John MacArthur 佢講到長真重要嘅代志。
And once he said something quite
有
important.
一擺有一個 reporter 嘅 interview 這個人，
There was a reporter who went to him for an interview.
佢講你一生有什麼對你父母對你有什麼影響？
And so he asked the question, what is the influence of your parents towards
佢講
you?
有三項影響。
And he said he was influenced by his parents in 3
佢講 number one
aspects. 頭一項
我看到我嘅父母真聽上帝。
that I saw my parents love God very much.
Number two，
第二項
我看到我嘅父母真正愛看冊。
I also saw that my parents love reading books.
Number three，
第三項
我看到我嘅父母彼此相聽。
I also saw my parents loving each other.
一個偉大嘅傳道人是對一個人嘅真正相聽呼呼出來嘅傳
So
道
a
人。
great minister of God came from two parents that love God very much as well.
囡仔真正需要安全感。
And the children, they certainly need to have this sense of security.
當囡仔有安全感長大以後，
And when these children grow up in an environment where there is this sense of security,
呢個人完全無相，
there will be very different.
叫做幫襯人。
So may the Lord God help
但
us.
做 parents
As parents,
實在好學習彼此相聽
we。really need to learn how to love each other.
我記得有一擺我係驚啲下個 you worship 最見證，
One time, my son was had this witness, a testimony in this youth worship.
後來有一個人嚟同我講話，
And later on, somebody came and talked to me.
你講牧師你知影你驚啲下個最見證喎？
And he said, you know, Pastor, your son shared a testimony there.
你講 I don't know，
And then, 我said,我唔知.
我講佢講什麼啊？
And I asked, what did he say?
你講佢 mention 一項代
He
志，
said he mentioned one thing.
你講差不多10多年，佢唔捌看到伊嘅老爸老母還嘅，
He says for the past more than 10 years, he had not seen his parents quarrel.
唔捌。
Never.
你講佢常常聽到，伊會等我，常常講伊會等我嘅 parents 個還嘅咯，個什麼愛 divorce 咯，愛離婚咯。
He have heard so many times among his classmates that their parents quarrel a lot, and even to the extent of wanting to have a divorce.
嗰陣我嘅親手地出來代志，囡仔看到目中。
So only to know the things that's happening at home between me and my wife is seen and being witnessed by my children.
我嘅親手都唔是完全嘅人，
Of course, me and my wife, we are not perfect people.
咱唔是無還嘅，
It's not that we never quarrel,
咱是喺房裡面還嘅，
but rather we quarrel inside the bedroom.
但是叫上帝幫襯咱。
But may the Lord indeed help
父
us.
母啦總是還嘅，
Of course, at times when the parents always fight,
你就係對你囡仔嘅傷害是真真係多。
you know, this is actually very harmful to your children.
最近美國有一個家庭一個 survey，
Lately, there's this survey in the United
你
States.
講今日第一件父母不幸代志
It says 8 things that children fear about their parents.
，Number one，
頭一項
囡仔第一件父母還嘅
The children are afraid when their parents fight.
，Number two，
第二項
第一件父母發生氣
They're also afraid when parents get
Number
angry.
three
第三項
第一件父母偏心
They're also afraid when parents play
，Number
favorites.
four，
第四項
第一件父母講話無生效，
They're also afraid when parents break promises.
個仲要高有力啊，
There's a fifth and a sixth one.
但是第一重要是 Number one，
But then the most important of which is the first one.
關於囡仔第一件是 parents 總是還嘅，
That the most fear for the children would be when their parents fight.
因為伊無安全感。
Because they will not have this sense of security.
So principle number one，
So 頭一個原則
parents nothing each other，
So 做父母一定要彼此相聽。
這時都會互你囡仔第一道屬靈嘅祝福。
This is the best spiritual blessing that you can give your children.
Principle number two，
Second principle,
將囡仔多到上帝嘅頭前。
that is to bring your children to the Lord.
John 3:4，我聽到我嘅行理照真理嚟行，我嘅歡喜冇這個比這個較多咯。
3 John 4, I have no greater joy than to hear my children are walking in the truth.
將來咱嘅囝兒嚟喺世界真有成就。
One day when our children become very successful in this world,
我相信咱父母得到第一道安慰，
and I believe at that time as parents will be most comforted
第一道嘅榮耀，
and also the most glorious time for us.
但是唔是第一道嘅快意。
However, that will not be your greatest joy.
你相信我講一句話，
Believe me when I say this.
特別咱是基督徒，咱是信主嘅家庭。
Especially we as Christian believing
你
family.
囡仔將咱哋世界真有成就，賺錢最錢，
One day when your children become very successful in this world and earn a lot of money,
伊互你安慰，
and He has given you comfort,
He
He also gave you glory,
但是伊未互你喜樂。
but then He will not be able to give you joy
除非你嘅囡仔照上帝真理嚟行，
unless your children will be walking according to the truth of God,
除非你嘅囡仔聽上帝、侍奉上帝。
unless your children love God and also serve Him.
男士，我保證你心內總是未喜樂。
Otherwise, I would guarantee this to you that you will never be truly joyful.
咱信主嘅父母啊，
And we as Christian parents,
當咱看到咱嘅囝兒聽上帝、侍奉上帝，
when we see our children loving God and also serving God,
這是咱父母第一道嘅喜樂。
this is indeed the greatest joy for the parents.
所以咱需要細漢就將囡仔多交上帝嘅頭前，
And thus, when they're still young, we have to bring our children to the Lord.
細漢就教導囡仔上帝屬靈嘅真理。
So when they're still young, we have to teach them the spiritual truth.
有時我知影咱做父母唔甘讓囡仔神地小嘅早起來，
At times, I know that parents would then want for the children to wake up so early on a Sunday.
因為 Monday to Friday 就讀冊頭真早先真早辛苦。
Because from Monday to Friday, they are so tired going to school studying.
Saturday 個真濟 activities。
And then on a Saturday, they are filled with activities as well.
Only Sunday 有通困較晚淡薄。
So it's only a Sunday they can sleep late.
特別你嘅丈夫還是你嘅太太，若唔是信主，
Especially when the husband or the wife is not yet a believer.
如果講無贊成你嘅囡仔去教會，
All the more that he or she does not agree that you bring the children to the church.
但是你若是信主嘅囝兒、信主嘅父母，
Then if you are a believer parents,
可能你是唯一嘅信主嘅老母，還是唯一信主嘅老爸，
or that you're only the Christian father or the Christian mother in the family,
你需要 insist， 你需要堅持，
you have to insist
細漢就多囡仔到上帝嘅頭前，
that when your children are still young, you have to bring them before the Lord.
因為囡仔是哪早哪容易信主，
Because the earlier the younger children are, the easier it is for them to believe
但係
in Him.
到 teenager 嘅時陣，
When they reach their teenager years,
冇容易聽你講話。
it's not so easy for them to listen to what you're saying.
結婚以後，
And after they get
伊
married,
更加唔會聽你講
all
話。
the more that they will not listen to what you're saying.
所以真早將囡仔多到主嘅頭前。
So it's much better for you to bring your children to the Lord when they're still much younger.
你講牧師啊，
And so you say,
我已
Pastor,
經將囡仔多交交回 Sunday school
I
咯。
already brought my children to the church Sunday school.
No, you are wrong。
這個係唔對嘅。
我唔是叫你將囡仔多交 Sunday school，
I'm not telling you to bring your children to the Sunday
我
school.
叫你將囡仔多交上帝頭前，
What I'm saying is you have to bring your children to the Lord
好你嘅囡仔認不上帝，
so that your children will come to know the Lord.
認不上帝第一簡單嘅辦法，
And the simplest way for them to come to know the
唔
Lord
是 Sunday school，
is not through the Sunday
呢
school.
個都唔是教會，
It's not even through the church,
是你家己，
but rather through
是
yourself.
咱做 parents 嘅
And
人，
we as
咱
parents,
需要將咱嘅囡仔多交上帝嘅頭前
we。need to bring our children before the Lord.
教會 Sunday school 是幫襯你，
As the church and even the Sunday school are just a help.
但係最重要是你，
But then the most important part
你
actually
需
is
要，
you.
你需要
You need to
將你嘅經驗、上帝嘅經驗，及囡仔撒個嚟講，
share your experiences about God with them
好囡仔知影你及上帝 relationship。
so that the children will realize there's a relationship between you and God.
你若實在信主，
If you are a true
將你
believer,
見證及你囡仔
you
講，
have to share your testimony with your children.
這對咱嘅生命好囡仔看到咱嘅上帝，
And through our lives, the children will be able to see God at work in us.
因為囡仔聽咱講話，
Because the children, as they listen to the words that we utter,
但是因為惡，因為行
but they will not act accordingly
，unless 伊看到你實在行落去。
unless you are also practicing what
所
you're
以
preaching.
modeling 是父母第一重要嘅代志。
So modeling is very important.
有一個囡仔叫做 James，
There's a child named James.
有一擺伫暑期，伊去一間公司做 summer job，
One time on a summer, he went for a summer job.
最近頭一日都佢出嚟㗎，佢真 excited 真歡喜及劉備講這樣
So
代志。
the first day of job after returning home, he was very excited to tell his father about
你
his
講
work experience.
哇，我嘅頭家真聰明
He
啊，
says, you know, my boss is very smart.
真夠攤子
He's
啊。
very good at making money.
嗰陣佢嘅所在係創 coffee shop。
So he went actually to a coffee shop for the job.
如果我頭家將 coffee brew 進去 coffee 以後，
He said after the boss brewed the coffee,
嗰嘅熱糖追落去，
he would pour a tank of water.
所以增加到20%。
And so it adds to the liquid 20%.
所以我頭家每日 coffee 加攤20%。
And so with that, the boss will be able to earn 20%
哇！
more.
講我頭家就真巧啊
And！ said, you know, my boss is really that smart.
James 劉備聽到以後，
And so when James' dad heard about
伊
it,
甲咩家講？
he told his son,
神，你
"Kian,
唔出嚟國地即係公司追更咯
you，should no longer continue working in this company."
你就 resign 咯。
He got to
你講
resign.
咱基督徒啊，
He said, we as Christians,
咱唔追騙人，
we should not be cheating
咱追
others.
勝利就誠誠實實，
And so in doing business, we ought to be very honest.
將 coffee 加追落去。
So when you add water to that coffee,
No，這是騙人。
this is a way of cheating others.
咱追基督徒就誠誠實實，追勝利人就誠誠實實。
So we as Christians, as businessmen as well, we ought to be very honest in our business
你
dealings.
講明下啲，
And so tomorrow,
你唔追國去追更，
you should no longer go to that
咱
job.
無要貪安尼款嘅
We
錢。
want to earn such kind of money.
James，伊講伊心內真受感動，
And so James was very touched by that.
伊講對大以後，
And so from that time
伊家己
onwards,
講伊 make the decision，即個 determination。
he told himself that he's making this decision and
伊
determination
講將來等我大漢，我要做一個誠實嘅勝利人。
that one day when I grow up, I will become an honest businessman.
你若去美國，
And so when you go to the United
你可能一
States,
間嘅店口叫做 J.C. Penney，
you will find a store named Jesse Penney.
即個 J.C. 即個 J 就叫 James。
And JC, that J there is James.
即係見啊大漢，佢有真最 J.C. Penney。
And so this child grew up and opened a lot of stores named JC
即係
Penney.
誠實嘅老爸教導伊見啊嘅代志。
This is an honest father teaching his children about these things.
我哋就係一個冇誠實嘅老爸。
So let me tell you about a dishonest father.
一個老爸因為殺一隻狗，司機殺嘅
Because of
one dog。
one dog, he lost 3 sons.
什麼意思呢？即係解釋呢？
So how do I explain this?
有一擺有一個老爸，
Once there was this father.
佢就被看到一隻問題水隻真正問題缺，會水隻嘅狗，
He came across this very cute puppy,
真貴嘅狗，
a very expensive one.
貴身故事黑色嘅，
The whole body of the puppy is black.
但是啲面料有3條白嘅紋，
However, on its tail, it has only 3 hairs that's colored white.
就唔要緊係也水嘅，
And so that makes it really very
你
beautiful.
多佢出嚟，
And so he brought home the
你出
dog.
嚟有3件啦，
And so at home, he has 3
你
children.
睇件啦都愛狗嘅
And of course, you know the children loves
特
dogs,
別是啲缺嘅，
especially the very cute
呢
ones.
很缺嘅狗，
So very cute dogs.
所以鐵頭。
And so they played with the dog.
但是第二日，
But then on the second day,
呢度有一個人特所在去斜狗，
there was a man looking for a dog.
伊即係老爸仔啊，就去斜過呢隻，
And so the father was quite sure that this man was looking for that
所
dog.
以就注意講什麼。
And so let's pay attention to what he said.
伊甲伊伫隔壁，伊儲備講這項代志。
And so he told his
如果你
neighbor,
看到隻狗黑色嘅噃，
have you
水色
seen
嘅
a
噃，
black dog, a very small
但是
one?
尾了有3條白紋啦啊，
But then on its tail, there's 3 white hairs.
所以儲備講，我諗住看到咱隔壁度，咱哋隔壁有一隻狗，係是黑色水色嘅啦。
And so the neighbor said, it seems that my neighbor also has a dog that's a small one.
哇！這個老爸巧咯，
And so this father quite smart.
誰將呢3條白紋吞起來，吞起來，
So
吞起來。
pull off these 3 white hairs
所以
from
咱
its
敲門
tail.
嘅時陣，
And so when this somebody knocked at the door
如果你講係狗噃，
and says, did you see my dog?
貴隻鵝嘅，
I said, it's a purely black
哦
dog.，
呢隻就是我嘅。
Oh, this is my
No
dog.
no no no，it's not your dog。
Because 這個不是啊，這隻不是你的
呢個就係
狗。
你嘅 dog 啊！
How can you tell that
你
it's your
證明
dog?
我嗰仔啊！
Can you prove it to
你
me
講
that
我
this
係
is your
狗
dog?，
尾了有3條鵝
He
紋
says,
白紋
my
嘅。
dog has 3 white hairs on its tail.
你看咪有冇
He
嘅？
says, look at the tail. Does it have any white hair?
都冇啊！
There's none.
都明明是伊嘅，但是冇白盲咁樣做。
This is actually his. However, this dog does not have the 3 white hairs.
結果伊嘅狗就是脱去咯啊。
And so eventually he was able to keep the dog.
但伊嘅細家潛默看到，
But then his 3 sons saw this.
等伊嘅家大漢嘅順講這項代志。
And so when these children grew up, they said,
等我大漢以後，
when I grow up one day,
我已經未相信我老爸講話。
I will not believe what my father is saying.
跌着一隻狗是幾細嘅
Just because he wants to keep that dog, he lost his 3 sons.
教會啊。
And so church,
Principle number 2，
你哋嘅原則，
你要將囡仔多到上帝頭
you
前，
have to bring your children to the Lord.
這條你嘅生命嘅見證，
And through your life testimony
這條你
and
experience，
from your
好
experiences,
囡仔這條你明白你嘅上帝。
and through you, your children will come to know your God.
Principle number 3，
第三個原則，
你想好囡仔有成長嘅機
you
會。
should give your children opportunities to grow.
Genesis 2:24，
創世
因為人就離開父母及妻子聯合，兩個人雜罪一體。
創世記第2章24節 That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh.
這隻聖經上上帝婚禮裏面牧師所用。
And very often this verse is being used by officiating pastors in a wedding.
這則嚟這裡講是the secrets of successful marriage。
這個就是這個非常成功的婚姻的秘訣。
婚姻成功的確需要注意這則聖經三項大
And
事。
so for a marriage to be successful, you have to pay attention to this verse. 3 things in this verse.
離開父母
That is to leave one's parents
及妻子聯
and
合，
also be united with the wife,
合最一體。
and they become one flesh.
這則聖經啊，
And in this verse,
對少年人嚟講，
and for the young people,
小你仔啊，你哋學習做一個獨立嘅人，
you are being told that you have to learn to be independent.
你要結婚，
You need to get
你
married.
要一個好嘅家庭
You，want to have a good family.
你就 learn to be
You
independent。
need to學習獨立.
你若冇好獨立，
If you cannot be
你冇資格
independent,
結婚，
then you are not qualified to be married
你是害死別人嘅太，害
Because-
害死別人嘅查某囝，
because you're only bringing harm to somebody's daughter.
別人就個變咗照顧你先做囡仔。
Because this wife would have to take care of you just like a son or a
但係
child.
對父母嚟講，
But then for the parents,
你學習幫手，
that means we have to learn to let go of our children.
父母啊父母啊，
And so parents,
你想
parents,
學習夠一個時間，let them go。
you need to learn up to a certain extent, you have to let go of your children.
咱係冇好幫囡仔出去，
If you do not know how to let go of your children,
囡仔冇成長嘅機會。
then there would be no opportunities for them to grow.
但係 let go 呢個功課是真更高學習。
However, this lesson on letting go is something that is difficult to learn.
當囡仔出世嘅時陣，
When a child is born,
你哋老母腹肚裏面40個禮拜佢出嚟，
and after spending 40 weeks in the tummy of the mother, and he was born.
我常常和老爸老母抱喺野興嘅裏面，
And very often the children are being embraced and also carried to the bosom of the parents.
即係囡仔感覺真有安全感。
And so the child will feel very much secure.
但當囡仔慢慢大漢嘅時陣，
However, when the child gradually grows
慢
up
慢長大嘅時
and
陣，
she's starting to grow up,
特別囡仔開始學習行路嘅時
especially
陣，
when they're learning to walk,
你睇真奇妙。
and you'll find this quite
當
amazing.
囡仔開始行路嘅時
When
陣，
these children are starting to
你
learn
注意講咪怎樣
walking,
行
you
咧？
pay attention to how they walk.
你睇是唔是啊？你
Is it not like this?
行看咪？
So you try
呢度
walking,
行咯行咯，
and so the child tries to learn
你
walking.
行無兩三步，
But after probably 2 or 3 steps
你會
only,
頭看老
you
母，
would turn back and look at
你
the
看到老
mother.
母哋行，
And seeing the mother is
你
there,
會衝過去，
then she would run back
Là
towards
một
the
hấp tấp
mother.
gì?
And then the mother would pat him or
Chinh
her
gạo.
and says, you're very good.
你個行，
And so he would continue learning to
一
walk.
擺度行到行淡薄，
And this time, a little bit
如果
farther,
我都見過老母，
and turn back again and look at the
如果
mom.
衝過去，
And then would again run back to
Có
the
hug
mother
lão mu.
and again hug the mother.
這關係正常嘅離開。
And this is a normal way of living.
到這個時間，
Up to a certain
你
point,
就離開也行咯，
he would walk and go at a distance
你近超咯，
because he got
你
married
過處咯，
and then moved out of the
嗱嗱
house
行咯。
and moved to a very far place.
但是
However,
當老母生日咯，
when it's the birthday of the
什麼
mother
鬧日咯，
and there's any celebration
嗱有時間咯，
and there's time,
伊都去，
then he would return home
伊 visit 伊
and then
parents，
visit the parents.
這是正常嘅離開。
And this is a normal way of living.
的確 確是安尼。
Certainly, it is like that.
什麼是無正常咧？
And so, what is abnormal?
你唔夠無意出去，
That you're not allowing
你
them
總是
to
冇俾可
leave.
以走。
You don't want to let them
我
go.
同你講啊，
And let me
等
tell
你
you
見到有
this.
時你要走嘅時陣，
One day when your children want to leave,
伊甲你永遠拜拜，
they will say a forever goodbye to
伊咪
you.
講到嚟咯。
They will never come back to you
因為我意思真愛走啦啦，
because they have been wanting to
你唔
live.
會追安尼，
You should not be like
你就
that.
慢慢幫佢出去。
You should gradually, slowly let them go.
我係時代見啦，頭一擺離開我及我係近超是第一讀 high school second year high school 嘅
My
時候。
oldest child, the first time they left us for a while is
My elder，
yeah, the eldest one is a second year high school.
你知啊，我將佢先去 China 讀漢文。
So I sent her to China to study Chinese.
其實我知啊，
But I actually was sure that
伊讀到嚟漢文也是也差。我知
even after taking on that schooling in China, she will still have a very
I guarantee
bad understanding of
你
Chinese
見到去
language.
China 去台灣到嚟也是 black zero。
I guarantee it to you, after they go through that learning schedule, they still come back to you and
你
learn
唔能
not
講
much.
伊到嚟就也舊漢文，被騙你。
Don't think that after they return, they'll be so good in Chinese. That's going to be
It's wrong, it's wrong。
untrue.
啊，你講啦，牧師講你可以去啊？
And so you ask me, how can Pastor you let her go?
哦，我係見到佢唔是叫佢學漢文，
I let her go not because I want her to study Chinese language.
這是 bonus。
This is but a bonus.
最重要是
The most important part,
我
though,
要學習 independent。
I want her to learn independence.
但你知啊不？
But do you know that?
你離開我咁近朝6禮拜，我常常笑念伊，常常紀念伊，
So for those 2 weeks that she was not with us, we always miss her.
唔知啊好些無？
We don't know whether she's okay.
但是我若無幫伊出去，
But then if I do not let her go,
伊就學習 independent。
how would she learn independence?
後來我係叫繼續生意出去，
And so it's my son's turn. I also send him out.
一擺生意去台灣，
So this time sending him to Taiwan.
到嚟漢文也是死咯。
And so upon returning, it's the same thing, zero
所以你唔
knowledge
去
in
啦
Chinese.
，China 台灣也是省咧啦。
So whether you go to China or you go to Taiwan, it's still the same
你
thing.
未多 improve 漢文啊？
There's not much improvement that you can see in the Chinese language understanding.
你唔能超越，伊兩個人漢文是90幾分嘅啦。
Don't laugh
我
at
請
them. In Chinese, they would have
Oh.
exams and scored 90 plus.
90分嘅，驚你輸伊嘅，你咪超越。
Then you can't even compete with them. They're around 98 in Chinese.
佢哋邊漢文是死讀嘅啊！
But then that's how it is in Chinese language in the Philippines. You just memorize them.
但是囡仔若無學習 independent，
But then if the children do not learn independence,
伊將來咪做家己生活咧。
how can they survive on their own one day?
我常常有一個 feeling 是安尼，
And very often have this feeling
父母啊，父母啊，
that as parents,
當你營運喺這個世界未離開世界以前，
before you leave this world,
你就學習幫囡仔出去。
you have to learn of letting go of your
Even though
children.
they make mistake，
Even if by doing so they commit mistakes,
冇要緊啊，
it doesn't matter
因為你哋食啦，
because you are still around.
伊都嚟找你啦
They can still come back to you
，help help help，
and ask for 幫讚,幫讚.
你幫襯伊，因為你未死啦，
You can still help them because you are not yet dead.
你嚟離開世界，
But then when you live from
你個
this
幫伊
world
出去，
and you let them go at that time,
伊又都對大志，
and when something happens
伊
to
就上
them,
啊 help。
to whom can they find help?
所以當你有通營運喺這個對照嘅時陣，
So while you are still alive in this world,
你就幫襯你。
you should be helping them.
我講一個見證，我講真最例子，我有一個真真深嘅 impact。
Many years ago, I read about his testimony that left a very strong impact on
有一個
me.
囡仔愛坐 bicycle，
Because this child who wants to ride on a bicycle.
這個老爸就買一頂 bicycle 給
And
伊，
so the father bought a bicycle for him.
但係囡仔都冇 bicycle 啊，
But then the child doesn't know how to ride on a
所以老
bicycle.
爸就幫襯伊個，
And so the father had been helping
伊
him.
就坐，嗱咪伊囡仔就坐 bicycle 嘅時陣，
And so when the child is on a
老
bicycle,
爸就啲後邊 hold 下握這個 bicycle，
and so the father will be holding on the bicycle
驚伊
at the
跌倒啊
back because he's afraid that he will fall from
It's
the
right,
bicycle.
it's right.
這個是對呀。
逐日安尼，
And so he
Tag
did
nila
that
ni-
every day
逐禮拜安
and
尼，
every week and doing the
Tag nila
same
ni-
thing and weekly it's like that.
到一個時間，
Up to a certain time,
伊總是冇要幫囡仔，
he's not willing to let the child go.
忽然間即係見他講一句話
And so suddenly the child
，Dad,
said,
let me go, let me go。
"Ba, dito bang waki ah, dito bang waki."
你若冇幫伊去，
Because if you don't let
伊
him
袂曉
go,
拜是高啊
he，will not learn
伊
cycling.
袂搏倒，但是袂曉
He
啊。
will not fall down, but then he will not learn how to ride on a
我
bicycle.
我記得，我就記得我係近超這項代志。
And so I remember something about my wife,
而且我全家
that our whole
我
family,
大家有受罪，
all of us know how to swim.
但係地佬牧師了袂曉。
Aside from my wife, everybody knows how to
所
swim.
以我就問你奇怪，我跟你袂曉受罪
And so
啊？
I asked her, how come you don't know how to swim?
我點解你父母冇教你受罪啊？
Did your parents teach you when you were young on how to
佢講
swim?
有啊有啊，
He said, yeah, they
伊
did.
老爸帶伊去受罪啊，
Her father brought her to swim
教伊受罪啊，
and taught her how to
咁
swim.
就教伊啊，
And how she was taught
人嘅手扶起來，
was holding on
咁
to
是
her.
受咯受。
And so swim slowly.
燒，所以我講伊幾時啦，就是安尼燒。
And that's how she had to swim like that.
好啦，對於老爸冇地下咯，
And so when the father is no longer
伊
there,
曉燒未？
does she know how to swim?
掂落去咯個，
Of course she would drown.
所以伊冇曉燒啊，
So she did not learn how
所
to
以
swim.
伊重新學習受罪。
And so she had to start learning
你唔能
swimming.
笑，你唔能笑。
Don't laugh at this.
咱嘅囡仔袂曉哦，
Our children do not know
就是因為你安尼
things.
燒。
It's because this is how you are training them.
但你聽好聲哦，
But then listen to this carefully.
你嘅囡仔若實在袂曉，你若放落去，伊會掂死哦。
If you don't know, your children don't know how to swim and you let go of your hands, certainly they will drown.
每一個囡仔都無相，
But then each and every child is not the same.
你就看你嘅囡仔 maturity 成熟到一個所在，
So you have to know the level of maturity of your each child.
唔應該幫，的確袂再幫。
So when it's not the time to let go of them, then you should not let go of
Yes,
them
sila.
because they will die.
應
In
該
that sense.
幫，的確需要幫。
However, when it's time, when you think that they can handle, then you can let them go.
慢幫手，
So you can let go of them slowly,
我哋嘅
gradually,
囡仔有一個 opportunity 去練。
so that your children will have the opportunity to learn.
Let me go，
Bang in key.
這是囡仔心內總是愛講嘅話。
And this is also the voice from children's heart.
但是你看你嘅囡仔會最幫未？
But then you have to verify as well if your children are ready to be
實在
able
袂
to
最
let them
幫
go.，
袂最幫伊就
If
是
it's
袂最
not
幫
your
伊。
time, then you shouldn't.
聽囡仔唔是講愛幫就可以出去，
Loving children doesn't mean if they want to go, you just let them be.
但是唔通規世人袂幫伊。
But likewise, you should not be always holding on to them the whole of their
Principle number
lives.
4，
第四個原則，
你想有囡仔有一個叫做 quality 不品質嘅時
you
間。
have to give your children quality time.
Moses 甲上帝祈禱講：上帝啊，求你指教咱做順生肖家嘅日子，好叫咱得到智慧嘅心。
Moses prayed to God, saying, "Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom."
保羅第以弗所書第5節再講：聽說更嚴，因為現今嘅世代邪惡。
Paul in Ephesians chapter 5 verse 16 says, "Making the best use of time because the days are evil."
時間是真重要嘅物件。
Time is a very important thing.
咱做一家之主嘅老爸，
We as the head of the family, the
有人
father,
嘅物件需要互你嘅囡仔。
there are two things that you ought to give your children.
第一個是金子，
First is the money,
第二是時間。
second is time.
金子是代表你以外一切物件，
Money represents everything apart from you,
時間是代表真正嘅你。
while time represents the real you.
好嘅老爸
So a good father
需要照顧出來基本嘅需要。
would certainly have to take care of the basic needs of the family.
做老爸若無骨力，若無負責任，這個唔是一個好老爸。
If the father is not a responsible one, then he is not a good father.
需要盡力供給出來大家人嘅需要。
So he has to really very diligently provide for every need in the family.
但是
However,
第一重要唔係是金子，時間更加重要。
the most important is not the money itself, but the more important part of which is time.
請你記得一句話：
Remember this.
將時間交予值得你聽說嘅人。
Give your time to those people who deserve to be cherished.
特你有24點鐘，
Every day we have 24 hours.
每一個禮拜有168點鐘，
And every week we have 168 hours.
這是永遠未改變嘅定律。
This is a law that will certainly not change.
每一個人一個禮拜都有168點
So
鐘。
each one of us has 165 hours a week.
你只有去 divide 呢個時間、分配呢個時間是第一重要嘅問
So
題。
how do you divide spending time on different matters is very important.
我最近連續看到兩間嘅冊，
Lately, I've read consecutively 2 books.
都是上一個作者寫嘅。
It's written from one and the same
哇
author.
，very good。
Hui Xiong and Ho.
頭一本叫做 The Man in the Mirror，
The Man in the Mirror was the first
最
one.
近寫到第二間嘅冊。
And lately, he wrote a second book.
呢裡面講一個真正重要一句話，我覺得真正受激勵。
In it, he said a word that really encouraged and admonished me to
你講當你離開世界嘅時
that
陣，
one day, if he leaves this world,
多一個人會嚟參加呢個追悼禮拜，
who of the people will be joining your funeral service?
多一個人嚟參加呢個追悼禮拜，各流默西嘅，
Who of these people who come to the funeral service will cry?
這個人特啲你將時間可以。
And these are the people who are worthy with whom you spend time.
我講 repeat，
So let me repeat
當有
this.
一日當我離開世界嘅時
That
陣，
one day, when I leave this world,
可能我是牧師，
maybe because I'm a pastor,
所以你冇愛嚟，瑪加利亞是愛嚟，
so even whether you like it or not, you still come.
但神啊為我離開世界流默西，
But then who will cry for me when I pass away?
這個是應該我 cherish 真貼實嘅人。
And these are the people I need to cherish.
教會啊，教會啊
And，so church,
我
church,
望你出來嘅人是迄款嘅人。
I hope your family members are people like that,
就是
are
當你
those
離
people.
開世界時陣，你出來人願意為你流出默誓，
That your family members are those who are willing to shed tears for your passing away.
將呢個時間交予迄款嘅人。
And so live and give time to them.
而且我哋教會上20幾年咯，
I've spent more than 20 years serving in this church.
有最時陣我將好我嘅見嘅時間好教會，
And very often I have given the time I'm supposed to give my children and have given that to the church.
忽然間最數禮拜，
And suddenly there's this funeral
忽然
service
間就結婚，
or suddenly a wedding ceremony.
即個是應該好見嘅時間我都好呢咯。
So this is the time that I should give my children, but instead I have given them to
我
you.
信啱啱忽然間就 emergency meeting，
Or sometimes there's this emergency meeting at night.
應該好見嘅時間我都好呢。
So those are the time I should be spending with my children, but I gave them to you.
所以最見嘅最牧師嘅見嘅是真冇容易，
So it's not easy to be pastor's kids.
所以我從來冇我嘅見嘅有 pressure，
So I have never given pressure, exerted pressure on them.
但是
But
我嘅見嘅係重要嘅日子。
then for the important dates
叫做
in my
嘢
children's
畢業
lives,
畢業咧咯，
for example, their graduation days
特別嘅日子咯，
or any special day,
我永遠會 absent，
I will never be absent.
我即刻去，
I certainly make myself present.
將呢個時間，好你所聽嘅人，聽你嘅人，
So give time to those children whom you love, people that whom you love, and also who love you back.
每一擺等我見到問我，爸爸你有時間喎？
So every time when my children would ask me, Papa, do you have time?
我即刻同佢講有啊，什
I
麼
will
大事？
certainly give an answer, yes, I have the time yet. What's the matter?
如果我要剪頭毛
And says, I want to cut my hair.
，Let's go。
Not like he.
如果我去你做 bookstore 佢每物嘅，
Or my wife wants me to buy things with her
national bookstore，
or a bookstore.
我講 Let's go，
Okay, let's go.
因為我見到是也貴啦，
Because my children, they're also
因為
really
隨
good.
便嚟請我，伊即刻傾面我請，我點正嘅時陣，
They certainly need me when they come and approach me.
教會啊。
And so
咱每
church.
一個人嘅時間實在有168點正一個禮拜。
Indeed, in a week, we have 168 hours.
你若將你時間攏總互你嘅 client、你嘅客戶、
If you spend all your time with your clients
互你嘅最新你嘅同伴，
or your business partners,
當然無唔對，你賺較較濟錢。
certainly there's nothing wrong with that because that's going to bring you more money.
嗱，你記得這樣代志。
But then remember one
你
thing,
若離開世界，伊咪甲你敲啦。
one day you pass away from this world, they will not cry for you.
伊講我醫生死咯，
Oh, my doctor died.
安尼啷嘅
That's all there is to it.
？The boss，
That's the end.
好聽說你鼻頭嘅人，
So you have to love the people who are with you
聽說一關關於為你流默西嘅人。
and treasure those people who are willing to cry for you.
Principle number 5， 咱需要及囡仔學習同行。
We need to learn walking with our children.
先知書阿摩書講一句話，兩個人若無同心，唔走同行。
The book of Amos, it says, do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? Not only do we need to walk with God, we also need to learn to walk with our children. And with three different positions we have, or identity, we have to walk with our children.
Number one,
頭子行 and walk with your children as a parent. When your children do not yet have the ability to discern between what's right and wrong and what's true and false. And we, as the parents, we have to walk with them. You should not allow your children to a lot of independence or freedom. You should not allow your children to make choices.
I'm sorry to tell you.
Because at this point in time, your children do not yet know how to make right decisions. Give it a try. Let's say you're about to start school. Say, son, let me ask you. Do you want to go to school or do you like to play computer?
You make your choice.
It's okay if you don't want to go to school, you just play with your computer. What will your children choose? Certainly they will choose the computer over schooling. It's only when there's something wrong with your mind that you go and want schooling. And son, Sunday, where do you want to go? You want to go Sunday school? You want to go and have fun? Or have computer games again? Certainly they will choose the computer games. Do you understand this? Because at that point, the children do not know how to make right choices. And so as parents, we have to teach them, lead them to make right choices and make right choices for them. And so when these children are still young, the parents should have to exercise their authority and teach their children. If at this point you don't know how to discipline them, then in the future you will not be able to teach them anything at all.
So number one,
and so you have to take on the identity as a parent and walk with your children. Second, take on the identity as a friend and walk with your children. When your children gradually grow up and started to become more mature and started to know things, so we have to start also lowering our position. Not only are we parents on one hand, we ought to be friends as well. And so we have to be a friend to them. Because as friends we can exchange opinions. Is it not? If you don't agree, you can express so. And that's what you call friends. And as parents, there's voting rights. Whether you like it or you don't like it, you can say your choice. But then remember, if you don't know how to become a parent, then you cannot be a friend to them first. Third, up to a certain point, you are no longer a friend to them. At this point, you walk with your children as an advisor. Very likely it is a point that they have already grown up. They probably got married and have their own family. And so parents, you have to move backwards. You have to move backwards.
As a good advisor.
So at this point, you take on the position or the identity of a good advisor. Allow your children then to make their own decisions. Yes, they can ask you of your opinion.
Good advice.
And so you have to give good advices to them.
Let them make their own decision.
Because they're already grown-ups. So may the Lord God help us. However, as an advisor, there's a very important qualification. That is, you yourself have to continue improving.
哥們需要好你見啊，看到我老爸我老母永遠真有智慧。
And as an advisor, you have to let your children know and realize that my parents would always have wisdom,
特別是屬靈嘅生命嘅裏面，
especially when it concerns spiritual life.
咱做父母唔應該輸見啊。
And as a parents, we should not be worse than our
為
children.
什麼？
Why?
因為你對求上帝俾你見啊，第一招增加20年嘅經驗。
Because in the pursuit of spiritual matters, you have an additional experience of at least 20 years,
除非你冇進步，
unless you don't improve.
20年靈性冇進步，
That for the past 20 years, you did not improve at all.
所以你見啊壓力。
And so your children are better spiritually
所以
than
咱需
you.
要喺靈性裏面無停嘅進步。
And so in our spiritual life as well, we have
Yes.
to continue growing.
可能是 technology 咱算咱嘅見啊，
Maybe in terms of technology, we are not better than them,
但是你屬靈嘅生命裏面，咱唔應該輸。
but then in our spiritual life, we should not lose to them.
所以求上帝幫助
So
咱。
may the Lord God help us.
即個項大志，
And these 5 things
好你學習，就是在聽你嘅家庭，聽你嘅家裏。
teach you how to love your children and love your family.
但是我知影冇容易，
But I know this is not
因為
easy
家庭是真無用處理嘅所在，真更過
because
handle 嘅問
it's
題
a
所在。
family, is a place where these things are hard to handle.
但是父母啊，
But then parents,
試過咪，試過咪，
give it a try.
彼此相聽，
Love each other
好見啊，建立一個真正嘅安全感。
so that the children will have this sense of security.
將見啊多到上帝頭前，
Bring your children before the Lord,
唔是多到 Sunday school，
not bringing them to Sunday
甚
school,
至
only,
唔是多到教會，
not even bringing them to the church,
是多到上帝頭前。
but instead bring them before the Lord.
好家裏有成長嘅機會，
Give the children also opportunities to grow.
應該幫就幫。
When you should be letting go, you ought to let go.
Even though they make mistake,
無管因有時陣會犯唔對，
let them learn from their own mistakes。
但係可因對這個所犯嘅唔對學習。
好見啊有品質嘅時間，
Give the children quality time.
你若有需要，你哋家，
If they have needs, you're always there.
你唔通走冇去。
You should not be disappearing.
學習嘅見啊，同家喺條
And
路，
also learn to walk with your children.
叫咗嚟幫襯啊！
May the Lord indeed help us.
好冇？咱安靜，數上主緊嘅講嘅話。
Let's spend a minute in meditation.